Okay, we're going to take a look at the song assignments that will be coming up for this next grading period. Song number 37, Carolina Breeze, is one of the first songs that we have where you do not see the names of the notes inside the note heads. On page 13, you do have your clefs that explain where those notes are. And there will also be a resource for you on your Google Classroom that show you the acronyms or the sayings that we use to be able to identify each of your clefs and help you remember their lines and their spaces. But there is some good news. We do have numbers that are there to help us. Something that I want you to not do is I do not want you to go in your book and write out each letter underneath each note, or else you're really not doing yourself any benefit, because then you're just reading letters and you're not actually reading music notes. So instead, you may use numbers which they have already given you, and those numbers represent which one of your fingers, finger 1, finger 2, finger 3, or finger 4, and they represent which one of your fingers is supposed to play on each note. Do be aware that finger 3, for example, is used on the note G and also on the note D for violins and violas. So you do need to be able to look at the notes and know something about what the letters of the staff and your clef are to be able to differentiate between a third finger G or a third finger D for violin or viola. Likewise, on the cello, 4 fingers on the D string plays the note G. Also, 4 fingers on the A string plays the note D. So numbers gives you a hint, but doesn't quite exactly tell you what it is. It leaves your brain some room to think about what it is and to actively use that brain to figure out what finger, what string. And as you watch it and you see that notes move down and notes move up, pretty soon after you practice, your brain will be used to doing it. So, here in Carolina Breeze, all of these notes are on the D string. 0 represents open, or it means not to push down on a string, as we did our first few songs with open D and open A strings. So Carolina Breeze will be one of your first graded assignments for this second grading period. All of the notes in Carolina Breeze are found on the D string. The numbers are there to help you. There is a repeat sign. So go ahead and plan on repeating this song, playing through it, and then repeating it once. And then we get a really fun song, Jingle Bells. Jingle Bells presents a little more of a challenge, as we start with F sharp in all parts, but here in measure 3, it goes to an A. So this is the open A string. You may even want to take your pencil and you could write a 0 above that. And that can help your brain remember, oh, okay, what is that new note that wasn't in Carolina Breeze? And you see the 0 and you think, okay, that's open, but it can't be open D because it's not where D is. So it must be open A. Feel free to, in your books, write in these finger numbers that I am adding in mine, as they will be helpful for you. Here we have G. I would circle the first note in measure 5, measure 6, because we have G, and then there's another G, and then it changes. And then in measure 7, I would circle that first note too, because it changes. It's another F sharp, and then it changes to a different note. And then in measure 8, this is very important, circle the rest. And I'm sure you remember what to say for a rest, but I'm going to write sh. To make sure you write sh in for your rests. So that in measure 8, we would have bump, sh, bump, sh. And during the sh, you don't play any sound. You can't play bump, bump. It doesn't work that way. It's bump, sh, bump, sh. And this quarter rest represents one beat of silence. Sometimes it even helps me to bump, bump, to breathe, to fill in that silence. Or you could even tap your foot, bump, bump, to fill in the silence so that you've got something that your body is doing so that you won't be playing a note at the wrong time there. Okay. Jingle Bells continues on. Of course, my book has all the parts. Your book, it's all on one page. This section right here, measure 12, 13, 14, 15, or I'm sorry, let's see, measure 9, 10, 11, and 12. This is the same as measure 1 through 4. So if you got measure 1 through 4, you've already got measure 9 through 12. And then this last section is a little bit different. I would even go as far as to maybe even put a little star right here above the second to last measure, so you can be watching out for when something changes. And here we have Old MacDonald Had a Farm. Here in Old MacDonald, measure 3, here's a 1 and a 0. And here in measure 3 is a 1 and a 0, but you can tell that these notes are physically lower than these other notes. These notes are higher up, therefore they're on a higher string. Here it is for the viola. These two notes, E and D, are on the D string with finger 1 and finger 0, whereas these two notes, B and A, are on the A string with finger 1 and finger 0. So don't write the letters in, but the numbers are there to help you, and they can help you grow in your understanding of how to read music without having the letters given to you. So take the repeat on Old MacDonald. You can say whatever animal you want to, a duck or a ferret or a bison. I don't care. I've got a hairless dog at home that you saw. He sang for you last week. Wasn't that cool? Wookie sang to you and talked to you a little bit. I thought that was awesome. Okay, number 40 is Mozart Melody. This will be a good test for you to see if you're playing it correctly. Because hint, hint, this is a song that I'm sure you know and have learned all of your life. So we'll let you play through that one and figure out what song is that. I'm sure you may have figured out. It's actually one of 3 songs that all share the same melody. Ba Ba Black Sheep being one of those songs. The other 2 may be even more familiar to you. But it's not Mary Had a Little Lamb. A lot of people say, Mary Had a Little Lamb. Nope. That one was actually called Rolling Along in our books. And it was earlier on page 7 or page 9. Now we get into Matthew's March. Matthew's March tells us about, on the top on page 14, key signature. And it tells you what notes to play with what sharps or what flats. And in this case, so far, you've learned the notes C sharp and F sharp. But just be aware that this key signature is telling you, hey, you're going to be playing notes, and all C's are really C sharps and all F's are really F sharps. But later, the key signatures will change, and that means that you will learn different notes like C naturals and F naturals, which are different notes, different pitches from C sharp and F sharp. So Matthew's March is a good way to see if you can read the numbers and also be able to tell which numbers correspond with which strings. There is a rest here in measure 4 and measure 2, so you may want to circle the rest so that you know to take a pause or tap that foot, but don't play a note. There is no repeat on Matthew's March. Okay, we also have Christopher's Tune. This one gets a little more complicated in that we have some notes that are not moving by steps anymore, but we are skipping a note from D to F sharp. So now we're skipping notes. So you have to think about, okay, where am I going to now? And then we have notes that are in steps, which means that it just goes from one note to the very next. Circle the rest. By the way, when you see these brackets earlier in your book, the bracket was there to tell you, keep your finger on F sharp. And as long as the bracket's there, keep that F sharp finger in place so that you may return to F sharp when it is needed. To do so, you'll need to make sure that your fingertips are bending right here at the knuckle so that you can create enough space so that underneath the finger you can play your A string with this finger, finger 2 for F sharp on the violin and viola, or 3 fingers for the F sharp on cello. So now that these fingers are bent, you'll be able to also play the open A string that lives underneath it. And then finally, the last assignment that we would have is London Bridge. I may even give some more time on London Bridge because it'd be great for us to try and learn it, but maybe grading you on it is not something that we'll do yet. But here's something you need to know, and you can read about on page 15 that we have harmony. And so harmony is where you have 2 or more different notes that are sounding at the same time. A duet is a composition for 2 players. So here you'll see we have violin and violin, or viola and viola, or cello and cello. And so we have a part A, and then this is connected, and then we have a part B. So what's this showing is that we have a duet going on. So one violin player would play part A, while, see, connected at the same time, the other violin player could play part B. And when they play those parts together, they're playing in harmony. And it sounds really cool. So as you play through, learn part A, and then go back and learn part B. Something else to notice here for London Bridge, we don't see any numbers. So don't write the letters in. But you could write a few numbers to help you. If I were you, I wouldn't write in every single number above every single note. Or then maybe you'd just be reading numbers. But if you can start to challenge yourself to read just the notes, I would say play through it as best as you can without any numbers. Play through part A. Then when you had trouble, maybe go back and add one number or two numbers in a spot that you had trouble on. For example, here, okay, we're A, B, A, and then that's G. And your brain might need a little kickstart to help you remember that that is on a different string than the A string. And so maybe the number 3 would be good for violins and violas. Or for cellos, the number 4 might be good there to help you recognize, okay, something's happening. I'm crossing over to a new string. In fact, you could go ahead and write that one in right now. Maybe that would help you. And then F sharp, G, A. And then for this note, E. Remember, I'm only on part A right now. If you maybe have trouble remembering, oh, what is that note? Maybe you could write the number 1 because it's one finger on the D string for E. So I'm going to leave this up to you, but do please make sure you circle the rests, especially here on measure 7. Be careful when reading two parts or duets, because as these brackets connect part A and part B, it's happening at the same time. And when we start doing songs like Lightly Row, for example, in your book, if you're on part A, make sure when you go to the next bracket or the next line down, that you stay on part A. You don't want to go part A and then play part B when there's more song to be played. Here's an example. So here's part A, violin, and then it keeps going on part A in my book on the next page. Okay, but London Bridge is where we want to get to before we really start digging into bows, so that way we can know how to add finger numbers and know how to be able to play without the note names in there. So